The movie starts with a young man named Lewis, who's traveling for a few days with his girlfriend, Jane. From their conversation, it's clear that this is their first trip together. Jane seems anxious because she doesn't like traveling much, but Lewis tries to make her laugh and talk to her so she won't feel nervous. Once they arrive at their destination, they rent a boat and meet the forest ranger. After confirming their booking, the ranger offers them a map of the forest, but Lewis refuses it, saying he knows the forest very well and that it's not his first trip. When the ranger asks him where exactly they plan to go, Lewis says they recently started dating and he wants to take her to a place called Blackfoot. The ranger tells them that Jane has never been on a trip like this before, and it would be an exciting adventure for her. However, he warns Lewis that the area is closed for the season and that anyone caught there would be fined $500 per person. Lewis ignores the warning and tells Jane to get ready to leave. Before they go, the ranger offers them a first aid kit, saying they might need it, and tells them their boat is waiting by the lake and they shouldn't be late. When they reach the lake, Lewis gets annoyed because Jane is still on her phone, even though they're there to enjoy the forest. He asks her to leave the phone in the car so she won't get distracted, but she refuses and puts it in her backpack. As they set off in the boat, they pass by some people returning from the forest, who are happy and say they had a great trip. This helps Jane feel more relaxed. Eventually, they reach the area where they have to continue on foot. Lewis is worried about leaving the boat in the water and decides to pull it to a safer spot. While doing that, he hurts his leg, and though he tries not to show it, it's clear he's in pain. He takes the first aid kit, pulls out a whistle, and gives it to Jane. Jane then pulls out a bear spray for protection and tells him she came prepared. Lewis is annoyed by her reaction and says that if she doesn't trust him or is too scared, they can cancel the trip and go back. Jane explains that it's her first time doing something like this and she didn't know what to bring, and that having these items makes her feel safer. Lewis tells her the forest doesn't have any dangerous animals. As they start walking, they meet some girls coming back from the woods. They find a large lake with a nearby spot perfect for camping. Jane suggests they set up the tent there, and Lewis agrees and shows her how to do it. Then Lewis goes to collect firewood for the night, leaving Jane alone. When he returns, he hears her talking to someone. As he gets closer, he sees her speaking to a stranger. When he asks who he is, Jane says he was just passing by and they introduce themselves. His name is Brad, and he's carrying a lot of freshly caught fish from the lake. Jane suggests they have dinner together. This annoys Lewis because she invited a stranger to dinner without asking him. He goes into the tent and calls Jane, saying he needs help with something. He tells her she invited someone she just met 10 minutes ago. Jane says Brad seemed like a nice person, and she invited him because of that. He didn't force himself on them. She offers to send him away if Lewis is uncomfortable, but Lewis says it would be awkward now, so they go out to sit with Brad. Brad senses Lewis is upset by his presence and offers to leave to avoid any tension. Lewis says it's just a misunderstanding and the three of them start talking. Brad begins grilling the fish and asks about their jobs. He learns that Jane is a lawyer and Lewis designs websites. As they chat, it becomes clear that Brad is interested in Jane and is ignoring Lewis, which makes Lewis feel jealous and uncomfortable. When Jane notices Brad focusing on her, she walks away to get the vegetables for dinner. Meanwhile, Lewis asks Brad about his job. Brad says he works as a wilderness tour guide, and few people dare to visit the areas he works in because they're so dangerous. When Jane returns, Brad changes the subject and tells her that if he had a beautiful girlfriend like her, he wouldn't take her to a basic place like this. He'd take her to a romantic spot like a waterfall. This upsets Lewis and he wants to kick him out, but he holds back. Brad then asks them about their plans for the next few days. Lewis says they came to enjoy nature, but Brad suggests they explore more of the park and tells them about a spot by the lake and how to get there. After dinner, Brad gets up to leave but pauses and asks Lewis what he meant earlier when he said, "misunderstanding." Brad's eyes look sinister. It's clear he's trying to start something and doesn't want to leave. Lewis stays silent, and Jane becomes worried. Brad asks again, and Lewis nervously admits he thought Brad wasn't normal and was scared for himself and Jane. Brad gives him a nasty look and leaves without saying another word. Lewis gets into a fight with Jane, blaming her for inviting someone like that. Jane apologizes and says Brad seemed nice at first. Lewis says he needs to go back quickly to where he was chopping wood because he forgot his axe. He tells Jane that if Brad returns, she should blow the whistle loudly so he can hear her. Later, the two go to sleep in their tent. The next day, Lewis decides they should go to the waterfall Brad told them about. He reassures Jane that he's been here before and knows the way. As they walk, Jane asks why the place is called Blackfoot. Lewis explains that the park has a lake surrounded by trees and rocks, and people used to follow animal tracks to find the lake. He says the waterfall is near the lake in the center of the park. Soon, Lewis notices large animal tracks but doesn't tell Jane to avoid scaring her. When they reach a fork in the road, Jane wonders why they're not taking the bigger path. Lewis says he knows a shortcut. They walk until nightfall and decide to set up camp. Lewis is in pain from his leg injury and uses the first aid kit to wrap it. At night, Jane hears movement outside the tent. She wakes up, but they both go back to sleep without knowing what it was. On the third day, they continue toward the waterfall. They notice broken branches near their tent and get scared, deciding to move quickly. Jane smells something strange, and they go to check it out, discovering a freshly killed deer. Clear evidence a predator is nearby. They hurry toward the lake, but when they arrive, there's no lake in sight. Lewis is confused and lost. Jane asks when he last came here, and he hesitantly says in high school. Jane gets angry and tells him to use the map, but he admits he didn't take it. Jane suggests calling someone, but is shocked to find out that Lewis took her phone and left it in the car, afraid it would distract her. She gets furious and says they're stranded with no way to get help, and it's all because of his pride. Feeling hurt, Lewis apologizes and tells her he only did all this because he wanted to propose to her by the lake. He wanted it to be special. Jane calms down and apologizes too, saying she didn't mean to hurt him. They decide to stay put because night is falling. While they sleep, something moves outside their tent again. In the morning, day 4, they find that all their food tied in the tree has been eaten. They realize they have no food left and need to find their way out. Jane asks when Lewis last knew the right path. He says it was at the fork, and they probably should have taken the main road. Jane drinks the last of her water, and Lewis gives her what's left of his. They continue walking and find a strange hole, which turns out to be a bear's den. Likely empty because the bear is out hunting. They hurry away from the area. That night, they sleep by the tent. Jane confesses again that she loves Lewis, and Lewis shows her the ring. But Jane says this isn't the right time. They should wait until they're safe. They hear movement again and go inside the tent. On the 5th morning, Lewis opens the tent and sees a bear sitting in front of them. Likely attracted by the smell of Lewis's bleeding leg, he quickly zips the tent shut. They're both terrified. Jane gets the bear spray ready. Lewis peeks outside again and sees the bear has moved closer. Despite the closed tent, the bear rips through and attacks. They scream and try to get help, but the bear bites Lewis's leg. Jane sprays it and manages to drive it away. She tries to stop the bleeding and comforts Lewis when he says he feels like he's going to die. But then the bear returns even more aggressively and drags Lewis out of the tent. It mauls him while he screams for Jane to run. Jane escapes, crying as she watches Lewis being killed. Before leaving, she grabs the ring he brought for her and runs through the forest in tears. Eventually, she hits her head on a rock and passes out. When she wakes up, she leans on a tree and screams, hoping someone hears her. She puts on the ring while crying. Her arm was also injured in the bear attack. She keeps walking until nightfall and decides to sleep in a tree, knowing the bear can't climb. On day 6, she wakes up to a helicopter overhead. She screams and waves, but no one sees her. Disappointed, she continues walking and finds a lake, drinks, washes the blood off, and eats a plant Lewis once told her was edible. Suddenly, the bear returns, chasing her. She runs and ends up at a waterfall with no way forward. The bear approaches. She blows the whistle to scare it and quickly climbs down the slippery rocks. She loses her balance and falls, breaking her leg. In pain, she makes a splint with a stick and uses another stick to support herself as she walks. At night, She lights a flare hoping someone sees it, but no one's there. She doesn't give up and walks until morning. Exhausted from hunger and thirst, she collapses. She wakes up and sees a deer, realizing she must be near safety. She follows it and eventually reaches the spot where they left their boat. She gets in and rows to the other side, where their car is parked. Finally, she collapses from exhaustion and is lucky to find Brad there with a tour group. He sees her passing out and runs to help her. The film ends there. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed the summary. And if you want to see more future recaps, subscribe to the channel.